If you want to wholesale real estate on your path to financial freedom, finding motivated sellers is the name of the game. But where should you be looking for them? Contrary to popular belief, the hardest part of the wholesaling process, in my opinion, is not finding a cash buyer for your deal, but actually finding a motivated seller to begin with. And good deals are worth more than gold, especially with the market as hot as it is right now. So in today's video, we're going to discuss what makes a seller a good candidate for a wholesale deal, and of course, what list should we be pulling to find them. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Lili, and this is where I document my real estate investing journey and bring you guys along with me. So far, in the wholesaling part of this journey, all of my deals have come from on-market listings. This means that I found these properties using sites like Redfin and Zillow, and one in particular was a for sale by owner sign in someone's front yard. And one reason I really enjoy doing on-market deals is because these deals can happen really quickly. For example, one of my deals took me less than 24 hours to find, offer, get that offer accepted, and find a cash buyer. That all happened within 24 hours because it was an on-market deal. I ended up making $8,000 in just one day, and if you haven't seen that video yet, I'll be sure to link it in the description below for you to watch next. But on-market wholesaling is not without its difficulties. There are drawbacks like not having enough leads or having to provide proof of funds letters to real estate agents, and while there are different ways to get around those things, if you've decided that you want to go off-market, you want to go directly to the homeowners, then this is the video for you. We'll break down the software I use to find motivated sellers and get their contact information, as well as the specific criteria I use to pull lists that I'm confident I can find deals with. So if you're ready, don't forget to change the color of that like button, and let's get started. So the software that I use is called PropStream, and this is a data service that gives you not just a ton of details about individual properties, but also allows you to pull large lists of potentially motivated sellers, as well as get their contact information all within the same platform. Now, PropStream is an investment. It costs $97 a month, and by my calculations, if it helps me find just one $5,000 deal or $10,000 deal, or even more than that, then it's definitely a good investment for my business. But I do have a 7-day free trial for you guys, so you can get in there and do everything we're talking about. You'll find the link to that 7-day free trial in the description below. So when you log in, the first screen you're going to come to looks like this. And basically, you're going to pick your market. Wherever you're investing, whether it's the place that you actually live or you're doing virtual wholesaling, you can use PropStream to pull lists for that area. So let's start off, and we'll just choose Columbus, Ohio as our test market for this video. If you live in Columbus, leave me a comment and let me know. So the first thing that we want to notice is that when we choose Columbus, Ohio, PropStream is going to give us some right off the bat information about this market. We can see across the top of the map that there are certain categories, and it's telling us how many properties within Columbus, Ohio fit that category. And so this is how many are on the MLS, this is how many are in pre-foreclosure, coming up for auction, bank owned, this is how many properties have been purchased with cash, how many have liens, how many are vacant, and how many have high equity. Now, we could just decide to say, look at all of the high equity properties, but you can see there's 186,000 of them, and that's gonna take us a lot of time and money to market to that many properties. So what we wanna do is get much more specific. It'll help us find more motivated sellers than just people who happen to have high equity, and it'll also help us to get this number down to a more manageable size list. And the way we do this is one of my favorite features of PropStreams. So instead of picking one of these categories, we're gonna come up to filter, and because I selected high equity, it's showing it right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit the red X to erase that. And again, it's showing me all of the properties that are in Columbus, Ohio. So starting from here, we want to stack different features that will build our list. And the question we wanna be asking is, what problem might someone have that a cash offer can solve? And when we think about it from that perspective, it'll help us get an idea of what list we should be building. So for example, a very popular list that people like to pull is the tired landlord list. So we're gonna use these filters to kind of create the profile of someone who might be a tired landlord, and then it's gonna show us all of the properties in Columbus, Ohio that are owned by someone who fits that profile. So if we're looking for a tired landlord, the first thing we know is that this person doesn't live in the property. And so where it says owner occupied, we wanna select no. From there, you have the option to choose occupancy status. Is the property occupied or vacant? And what I found is that it's easier for someone to sell a property, to wholesale a property, and for your cash buyer to purchase that property if the property is already vacant. So it's completely up to you if you want to go after properties that are occupied and you're willing to deal with the tenants, or if you want to go after properties that are vacant. So for this example, I'm going to select occupancy status as vacant. And what you can see right away with just those two criteria is that we've whittled our list down to just around 5,000. And so it's getting smaller, but it's still not quite reasonable enough of a number, small enough to target or specific enough to really know that this person might be a good candidate for our cash offer. So let's keep going. You can hit this drop-down arrow for property characteristics. And what I like to do here is select single family, multifamily, and multifamily 5+ units. The reason that I do this is because I know this is what most cash buyers in my market are looking for. There's not a ton of investing going on in condos and townhouses, and I have not moved into wholesaling things like farms, and some of these other things that are listed here. So that's why I choose the single family, multifamily 2 to 4 units, and multifamily 5+ units. The next thing I like to look at with property characteristics is I want this property to have been built before the year 2000. And so that updates us right here. Having it built before the year 2000 just means that this property probably needs some work at this point. It's been 20 years and maybe it's outdated or there needs a new roof or whatever. But this is gonna get me properties that are ideal for wholesaling and that may have been rentals since the time that they were built. So nothing newer than the year 2000. And that is all I put in terms of property characteristics. As you can see, our list is down to around 2,300. Next up, I like to go to ownership info. And the first thing I like to select here is that this property is owned by an individual. So there are different reasons that you might look into properties owned by corporations like LLCs or properties that are in trusts from different family situations that have gone on. But with this list, I'm looking for individuals, just landlords who own these properties that I can contact and have a conversation directly with them about their house. So that's why I select individuals. And I also want to make sure that this individual has owned the property for at least 5 years. So at this point, we have a pretty good indication of what the person who owns this property looks like. They do not live in it. It's currently vacant. It's a single family or any other type of residential property in terms of a small multifamily 2 to 4 units or 5 units plus. It was built in the year 2000 or earlier. And again, it's a single individual who owns the property. And this shows us 1,200 properties that are in this range. And so depending how much money you want to spend marketing to these homeowners, whether you're going to skip trace these homeowners and pay for their phone numbers and cold call them, or you're going to send them a postcard or a ringless voicemail, these are all things that you can do within PropStream. So I'll show you that next. But that will determine how much money you want to spend and how large of a list that you want. The more characteristics you add, the smaller your list is going to be. If you don't want 1,200 properties in this case to market to, you could also add something like this person has to have owned the property for a minimum of 5 years. And you see that cuts our list size in half. Another thing you could do, even if you didn't want to do that, is you could come down to valuation and equity information, and you could put a minimum amount of equity. So for example, you might put this person has 30% of equity at least, and that cut us down not all the way to 600, but instead to about 1,000. So let's say we're satisfied and we want to contact these 1,043 property owners. And so we would select the entire list, and then we can hit add to list. And we can come over here and add it to a marketing list that we've already created, or we can create a new one and title it. And so we could title this Tired Landlords February, I can't spell, 2021. Oh my goodness, okay? And so I'm not actually gonna save this right now because I'm not gonna market to this list in Columbus, Ohio. Now let's say that I want to pay for the phone numbers of these homeowners so that I can call them up. So I would come over to skip tracing, select contacts, and then at the top I would select group, and that's where I would see my marketing list for the Tired Landlords February 2021. I would select it, and then I would pay, right now, PropStream has it at 12 cents per phone number, only for the phone numbers that PropStream could find. So out of that 1,043, if they could only find 1,000 phone numbers, I wouldn't pay for the ones that they didn't find. Now let's say that I don't want to skip trace and cold call my list. Instead, I want to maybe send them a postcard. I could come to campaigns over here on the side, and I could select postcard, and I could create, you know, do I want a big postcard? Do I want a little postcard? Do I want to start with one of PropStream's designs? Do I want to start from a blank template? And I could set the whole thing up and have those postcards sent out directly from PropStream. Or I could have PropStream call those numbers and send them a pre-recorded ringless voicemail drop. So there are a lot of different ways that you could decide to contact these homeowners from the list that you pull. And if you want to see even more of a breakdown of what those different marketing strategies are, you can check out this video right here. Now let's go back and let's think about another list that a lot of people like to target, and that is the expired listing list. So what this means is that somebody put their property on market, on Redfin, on Zillow, and they tried to sell the property and it did not sell. Now sometimes this could just be because they wanted way too much for the property and they weren't accepting any of the offers they got, and so they let it expire. But it could also mean that the property was in such bad condition that, it just didn't sell, no one came along to purchase it, and it could mean that that homeowner is now more motivated because they tried to sell it once and weren't able to. So when you call them asking if they're wanting to sell now, they may be in a position where their motivation has increased a little bit. So let's put together this list. We're gonna come back up to filter and we're going to actually hit reset. And in this situation, I'm actually not gonna specify whether I want the property to be owner occupied or not, or whether it's currently occupied or vacant. The first thing I'm going to specify is that, again, I want it to be a single family, small multifamily, or large multifamily. From here, I'm gonna actually put in 2015 as the year it needs to be built before. Reason being, I don't want to see new build properties that didn't sell and were taken off the market for whatever reason. But I don't necessarily need the property to be built earlier than, the year 2000 like the last one, because it's very possible that a property, let's just say, built 10 years ago in 2010, someone is ready and willing to sell that. So I don't want to take away too many options, but I do want to be a little bit specific to cut out those brand new built properties. And then the big one here that PropStream is going to help us out with, if we go to MLS status, we can come down again to where it says MLS status and we can hit failed. And this is going to show us all the properties that have failed on the market that were built in the year 2015 or earlier. But you can see we still have 2,700 properties, which is a really big list. And so something I like to do is put a minimum days on market of 60 days. Meaning this property sat on the market for 60 days without selling before it expired. And that has cut us down to about 1,600 properties, which is getting better. And the final two things that I like to put here is I like to go down to ownership info, and I like to say that this person has owned the property for a minimum of 5 years, because I don't want to run into someone who was maybe wholesaling or trying to wholesale this property where they purchased it, put it on the market, couldn't find a cash buyer, so they took it off and did something else. So I want somebody who's owned the property for a minimum of 5 years, and you can see that's cut my list down to about 567. I like to do lists anywhere between about 600 and 1,000 properties, but it's up to you on how many homes you want to be contacting based on your marketing budget. Another thing you could do in this situation, if I take off that 5 years, I'm back up to 1,600. I could again come down to valuation and equity info and look for properties that have at least 30% equity, so that I know there's some room to wholesale the property. Now, this is a bit of a side note, but you guys are sticking with me, so I'll give you this golden nugget. It doesn't actually matter if the property has enough equity. If it doesn't have enough equity for a traditional wholesale deal, you could always get creative and do something like subject to. So that's one reason why I don't necessarily care how much equity is in the property, because I know that if I have a motivated seller on my hands, I'll figure out a strategy to help them out and get this property off their hands and make it work for myself and my investors as well. So again, at this point, we've got 1,000 properties and we'd select it, create a list, and do the same thing as we did before. Now, before we talk about our third and final list, you might be thinking that if everyone who's wholesaling or investing in Columbus, Ohio is pulling this exact same list and calling these property owners, aren't they going to get fed up with getting these calls? And isn't there too much competition? That is one downside to wholesaling. When there's competition out there, things get a little bit harder. And so I don't think that should discourage you, but this third list is one that is gonna be uniquely your own, and that's your driving for dollars list. If you're not sure what driving for dollars is, it's when you get in your car and you go out and you take note of all of the vacant or possibly distressed properties that you see. And one of the great things about PropStream is they also have a driving for dollars app that is included in your monthly subscription. So with this app, you can create a list, and this list is unique to the streets you drove down and the properties that you specifically recognized as potential deals. And when you come home, PropStream is going to automatically, if you come over to My Properties, you're gonna have this section that says mobile. And down here, you'll see all of the properties that you selected while out driving for dollars. Then you could do the exact same thing as before and select the entire list, hit actions, add it to a marketing list, and then skip trace it and get the contact information of the homeowners that way. So leave me a comment down below and let me know what's the first list you're gonna pull to find motivated sellers. And don't forget, you can grab that free 7-day trial of PropStream using the link in the description. Until next time, happy investing and thanks for watching.